This is the second of 4 SPSS tutorials. In this section, we will be discussing how to conduct correlational analyses in SPSS, how to interpret the SPSS output, as well as how to plot your results on a scatter plot. Alright, now let's go over our goals for this tutorial. Number 1, we want to just have an overview of correlation. Number 2, we want to be able to know how to test for the significance of R. And number 3, we want to be able to plot a scatter plot of x and y variables and add the best fit line. Okay, so an overview of correlation. The primary reason for conducting correlational analyses are to determine how your x and y variables are related. The formal definition of a correlation is that it demonstrates the degree of linear relationship between two variables. For example, in the graph you see here, we are interested in how interpersonal anxiety along the x-axis and self-esteem along the y-axis are related. The best graphical representation of this type of analysis is a scatter plot, because it visually represents the direction and distribution of your data. Now there are two different statistical tests that determine if two variables are correlated: Pearson and Spearman. In order to determine which test is suitable for your data, you must first determine whether your data is nominal, for example, categorical data, like gender; ordinal, which would be categorical data with a logical ordering, for example, first, second, or third place; interval, which is continuous data where differences are interpretable, but with no quote-unquote natural zero, for example, temperature in Fahrenheit; or ratio, which is continuous data with a natural zero, for example, birth weight in kilograms. If you have interval, ratio, or approximately interval data, then you will use the Pearson correlation. If your data is nominal or ordinal, you will use Spearman. Now we will review how to conduct these analyses in SPSS. Please open your class datasets. At the top of the screen, click Analyze. Then scroll down and hover over Correlate and click on Bivariate. Please note that these analyses were done using a Mac, so your screen may look a little different if you are a PC user, but the steps are still the same. Next, select the variables of interest, which in our case are self-esteem and interpersonal anxiety. Click on the arrow until your selected variable appears on the opposite box on the right side of the screen. Now that both of our variables of interest are selected, we must decide which correlation to use. As we can see from the symbols next to each variable, we have ratio data, which makes Pearson the appropriate statistic to run. Since we have a directional hypothesis for this example, we will choose the one-tailed test. Now select OK. In summary, when you are in SPSS and need to run a correlation, you click Analyze, then scroll down to Correlate and choose Bivariate. Then you select your x and y variables and determine whether it is appropriate to use Pearson or Spearman. Then, depending on your hypothesis, whether or not it will be a one-tailed or a two-tailed test. Alright, now it's your turn. Following the previously discussed steps, run a bivariate correlation between self-esteem and interpersonal anxiety. Please pause the video until after you have completed your analyses for instructions on how to interpret the SPSS output. Now that you have run your analyses, let's take a look at our output. This is what your correlation table should look like in SPSS. This table will tell you what the correlation is between self-esteem and interpersonal anxiety, the strength and direction of the relationship, and the significance of the relationship. For this example, the Pearson correlation is negative 4.24. This is our R value. It tells us that there is a negative relationship between self-esteem and interpersonal anxiety, and this relationship is significant at 0.01 level. When writing up your results in APA format for a correlation, it is important that you discuss the R value and its importance, explain what it tells you about the relationship between x and y, and further, interpret these numbers based upon the theory. Now that we have our results, we must visually present them on a graph to further explain the relationship. Okay, so go to Graphs, scroll down to Legacy Dialogs, and go to Scatter/Dot. Now, select Simple Scatter, and then click Define. Now we're going to select our x and y variables. Here, the x-axis is interpersonal anxiety, and the y-axis is self-esteem. Now we're going to double-click on the scatter plot on the output. Click on Add Fit Line at Total. And we're going to choose Linear. The scatter plot allows us to eyeball our data. We can see the dispersion of the data, and the best fit line shows us the direction and strength of the relationship between our variables. Okay guys, so remember, go to Graphs, then Legacy Dialogs, then Scatter/Dot, then Simple Scatter, and click Define. Select your x and y variables. Double-click on the scatter plot on the output. Click on Add Fit Line at Total icon, and choose Linear. Okay guys, it's your turn. Follow these steps and graph a scatter plot with the linear line. Okay, congratulations guys. Now you should be able to calculate a correlation in SPSS, determine which correlation to run, Pearson or Spearman, one-tailed or two-tailed, interpret your SPSS output, and write your results in APA format.